So this is thanks. This is what JL was supposed to be doing, and he did earlier. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for putting together this presentation, this opportunity. I have talked a little bit about my background. I come at it from a lot of different angles. I've worked in natural products in retail. I've worked in consulting for natural products companies. I've formulated for a number of the leading companies. I've been in private practice off and on over the years. So I come at it from a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different ways. So today's goals, there are a few things that we're going to talk about. We're going to start off just talking about a little bit about bees, just because, bees are giving us this gift. So I think they are due a little bit of the conversation. Then we'll talk about the background on Propolis, a little bit of the history and what it is. We'll go through a little of the research, and I want to emphasize little, as was alluded to earlier. There's a lot of research out there. Obviously, we can't go through thousands of studies that have been done on Propolis. So we'll cover some of the things. Then we'll look into really how to get a quality product. With a lot of things, there's not that much difference in some of the supplements that are out there. I mean, ascorbic acid is ascorbic acid. Vitamin E is vitamin E. There's some twists and turns you can do to those. But in the area of Propolis, there's a really large difference there, and we're going to talk about that. Then I want to close a little bit with lessons from the bee. And really the goal here is to hopefully pique your interest in exploring and maybe even utilizing. We're really only going to touch on things. So I would encourage you to, if you get interested in it, to explore a little further. And I'll offer some resources as we get into this conversation. So start off with the disclaimer. This is a disclaimer that when the FDA first said we had to do these things, I was kind of opposed to a certain degree. But now, having spent years of playing around on the internet and researching things and seeing the grandiose and oftentimes absurd and exaggerated claims that are out there, I do think it is necessary. So I want to be really clear. I'm not talking about cures of any diseases, although they may slip into my conversation a little bit here and there. So we're not talking about cures. We're talking about the research that indicates and suggests that there is some potential and some promise in this regard. It's important to keep in mind when we talk about Propolis to know that the vast majority of the research is either lab studies or animal studies. There is some human studies, but most of it is not. So we always have to consider that in the process. So again, no cures, just hopefully some helpful information for you. So there are approximately 20,000 different species. There's the bumblebee, carpenter bee, Africanized, which are probably the most common here in the U.S. Mason bees, the largest bee is a leafcutter, about 1.5 inches in size. They are found on every continent in the world except for Antarctica. And bees have been around for a very, very long time, 125 million years. It may surprise some to know, particularly those who have a certain fear of bees, that many bees don't sting. Drones don't even have stingers. Many bees don't live in hives. Some actually live in the ground. Some are loners. So there are a lot of differences that bees bring to the table, although we're going to be talking about honeybees are the ones that produce the propolis. So what is propolis? Propolis is a waxy substance produced by honeybees. Roughly 60,000 to 80,000 bees live in a single hive. So you can imagine that it's essential to keep that hive clean. So if a bee comes back into this very closed, tight space, and it's got a sniffle, so to speak, you can imagine with 60,000 neighbors living right next to you, that this can spread quite dramatically. And propolis seems to be one of the roles that propolis plays, is keeping that hive sterile and clean. One of the interesting things about propolis is bees seem to know that propolis serves this purpose, in that when a pathogen gets introduced into the hive, bees will actually go out and gather more propolis and bring it back to the hive. So they seem to be aware of it. Propolis comes from the Greek pro, meaning before or front of, polis, city. So you can see it at the entrance. Bees use it as like a car wash, a bee wash when they enter the hive. It seals cracks and holes. It lines the walls. It helps cool the environment, helps deal with the vibration, which you can imagine in a hive is quite considerable. If there's an invader in the hive, what they will do is kill the invader and then cover it in propolis so it doesn't degrade in the hive. Propolis is made of about 50% resin, 30% wax, 10% essential oils, 5% pollen, and then 5% other organic compounds. And this breakdown is really important as we talk about how these things should be processed and extracted as we get a little further into the conversation. But it's that last 5% that offers the magic, so to speak, the medicinal compounds, the therapeutic compounds. give you an idea of at least certainly how it's been widely used, for pathogens. It's known as nature's antibiotic. It's often commonly known as Russian penicillin. So it gives you a good idea of one of the applications for it. Bees go to a lot of effort to produce it. They got to gather it from all over the place. A hive only produces about a couple hundred grams of propolis a year. And we alluded to this in the conversation. One of the surprising things about bees is that while they've existed for such a very long period of time and they live in these very tight enclosed spaces, you would think that bees would have developed over 100 million years a really strong immune system. But lo and behold, bees do not have a particularly strong immune system. And I would argue the reason for that really is because of propolis, because they can rely on propolis. Propolis can do the things almost as an external immune system to help keep that environment clean and sterile. And this is maybe one of the reasons why colony collapse disorder, which I'll mention really briefly at the end, is such a problem, because their immune systems really aren't designed to deal with some of these health crises. So 3 major types of propolis. Brown propolis, which is the most popular, most common. When people say propolis, generally they mean brown. Widely comes from poplar, conifer. It's 80 to 85, maybe even 90% of all propolis out there. Green propolis comes from, and I'll butcher the Latin here, Baccharis dracunculifolia, and that's about 10 to 15% of propolis. And that plant is known as the rosemary of the field. And then there's red, the unique propolis that Natura Nectar is responsible really for bringing it to the world at large. This comes from a plant called Dalbergia castophyllum. It's less than 1% of the propolis out there. So this is a very rare propolis. Comes from very specific limited areas. And the couple of areas that do produce red propolis, there's distinct differences. So Brazilian red propolis is a little different than, say, Cuban red propolis in this regard. So just some comments on the history of propolis. Humans have been using this for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. Humans have a long history of using products from the bees, of raising bees. In fact, records suggest that about 13,000 BCE, they were starting to, deal with hives, do them on their own. They are on the left, and you can see it isolated on the right. These are cave paintings dated 6,000 BCE, known in the Spider Cave. It's Valencia, Spain, and it shows them gathering the honey in this regard. Egyptians considered propolis to be the secret to eternal life. They used it for embalming. China has used it traditionally for toothaches, infections. Roman legionnaires used to carry it around in the little medicine pouches. Going to North America, the Incas drank it to induce fevers. Hippocrates promoted it for sores and ulcers. Pliny the Elder, one of the most famous older herbalists, used it for colds. And more recently, it was still used as almost as an antibiotic or antipathogen in the Boer War around the 1900s, and the Russians even used it up to World War II. So this is a remedy that's been around for a long time and still was very recently used quite frequently. And just a caveat or a strange twist, Stradivarius actually varnishes violins with it. So there's an unusual source or unusual use of propolis. So any violinists out there, you give it a try. So I mentioned 3 types of propolis. You can see that all the propolises that Natura Nectar uses come from Brazil. You can see the area that brown propolis comes from. And we're going to talk about each one of these things in a little detail. The green propolis and then the red bee propolis. What's important here is that propolis come from a clean, pristine environment. Bees in the beehive very much reflect the environment at large. In fact, environmentalists use bees as a measure, as a tool to measure the health of an environment, because it will tend to concentrate things, because bees travel miles and miles sometimes. So toxins in the environment will be reflected as toxins in the hive as well. So it's very important that the propolis comes from these pristine environments. Unfortunately, the vast majority of propolis that's sold in the general marketplace for propolis oftentimes comes from polluted environments, not the best environments for it to be sourcing them.
Yeah, no, that's a really big deal, Dr. Meyer. Yeah, it's even, like local honey. It's like, oh, I'd really want, of course, there's a lot of benefit to getting local honey because you're kind of ingesting the stuff that's around you and all of that stuff. But then you start asking the local honey producers where they're gathering where their hives are, and it's like, oh, just kind of in the middle of the city or right next to the, right next to agriculture with pesticides and all that stuff. It's like, oh, okay, well, I would really love to have your local honey, but I don't want all the pesticides and stuff that come with it. So yeah, no, that's
You raise a good point with honey.
What I love about you guys is you're getting your stuff from the middle of the woods and exotic Brazil, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
You raise a good point about honey. Honey is fraught with fraud. A lot of people say they sell local honey. It's not necessarily always coming from local. As you mentioned, the location may not be the best of locations. Certain types of honey oftentimes aren't really that type of honey, particularly the honeys coming out of New Zealand. So you got to be really careful with honeys. And an interesting point about honey is you cannot get organic honey from the US because bees cover such a large territory that there's no area, unfortunately, in the US where you can do these bees that they're not going to come in contact with, unfortunately, with pesticides and stuff. So organic honey from the US is not a possible. So we mentioned earlier, again, there's a lot of research out there. This is just, again, a smattering of some of the research that's common. And again, I really want to portray to you that this isn't just something that's kind of folklore or, mythological, but there is a lot of science behind propolis. So I made a chart of some of propolis benefits. I'll emphasize some. And you notice there are a lot of black bars here. Unfortunately, I have to put the black bars up here because of our FDA limitations on regulations and things. So in many ways, this is I would call this a painful presentation for me because there's so many things I want to talk about, so many things I want to mention that propolis is good for and can do. And I'm sure you can attest to that. But
I wonder what the one right after anti-cavity is, Dr. Mark.
Yeah, well, we'll leave it to your imaginations. But so again, I want to give the point basically is there are lots of applications for it. Some we're going to be able to talk about, some we can't. It's great for the immune system. It's improved non-specific immunity, an increased responsiveness of macrophage, the big Pac-Man-like immune cells. It increases their appetite, so they're actually eating up, gobbling more pathogens. It's been shown to increase the movement and spread of macrophage throughout the body. So if you have an infection in your finger, the macrophage get to your finger rather than going to your leg or someplace else in your body. Increases antibody production, increases natural killer cells. Tons of research for its oral use. It's probably one of the best, if not the best, natural remedy that's been studied for oral health. Good for anemia, can improve iron utilization, bone formation, something, again, people don't normally associate with propolis. So again, lots of applications there, as you can see, and we're going to talk about some of these things in detail. We also kind of touched on this point in our opening conversation. Is I think one of the biggest ironies that exists about propolis as its ability to support our health and healing is that because it does so many things, because it is so promising, I think Western medicine has tended to poo-poo, because Western medicine likes a single constituent having a single action or pathway that they're working on. And in fact, when you look at a lot of the research that Western medicine researchers are trying to do, they're trying to isolate it down so you get only one constituent from the propolis and then to testing and studying it. And more times than not, what the research shows is that there's a synergy between all these compounds that have benefits beyond what any single one of these components can do. So, there's CAPE, which we're going to talk about, or artapilin C. Those are wonderfully powerful compounds, but they're even more powerful when they're mixed with other compounds that you find in the propolis. So I think one of the things that holds back the success of propolis is simply the success of propolis, if that makes any sense. So I mentioned research. I actually have a website. It's called Propolis Science. You can go to propoliscience.org. I've collected hundreds, or at this point, maybe thousands of studies that are there. It's a searchable web base, so you can go there and search whatever condition or application or type of propolis that you want. You don't have to sign up for anything. There's no, I'm not following you because of the result of it. It's just because I was really so impressed with propolis. I'd always used it in practice, but for that limited use, I must admit to, primarily for immune and for its antimicrobial actions. So when I started exploring this and researching this, I figured people really need to know more about this. People need to find out what propolis really can offer. So these are kind of some general applications or uses for propolis. It is immunomodulatory, meaning it balances the immune system. It's not going to overstimulate the immune system, so it can calm an overactive immune system. It can stimulate an underactive immune system. So these are some of the basics applications for propolis in general, regardless of the type of propolis that we're talking about. Propolis also, I mentioned, I like remedies that hit the body as a whole, that are systemic, that work organs and systems in the body. Propolis certainly fits that bill. You can see there are a number of systems and organs in the body that propolis has been shown to benefit. Propolis has been shown to protect, maybe prevent certain things from happening, and maybe even be used in certain conditions that are related to some of these organs. Again, I apologize for being a little obtuse, but that's a requirement that we're stuck with the FDA. So how can propolis do all this? Okay, you just mentioned what are there 8 or 10 organ systems and organs and systems in the body that can do that. Well, as we said, there are literally hundreds of compounds. This is just a partial list of compounds and constituents. So you can see that each one of these things has potential to have benefits. And you can look down the list. Apigenin, you can search apigenin and find hundreds of citations just on that. Quercetin, tons of research on quercetin.
Yeah, there are thousands of like just cancer specific studies on apigenin. Yeah, I didn't even know apigenin was in in propolis. I love it.
So it's an amazing remedy when you really start looking at the range of constituents, and then you start about adding these things up together, and you're really talking about a powerful healing ally. So just looking at just some specific areas as far as these the propolis, in this case, brown and green propolis, you can look at some of the actions on the left side, and then you can look on the right, and you can see that there are different compounds in each of these things that are contributing to that. So, there are a number of different flavonoids, phenolic compounds. We're not going to get into the chemistry a lot. Chrysin, there's a huge amount of research on that. Pinosobrin, galingin, there's just so much cinnamic acid. Any one of these things stands alone as a powerful natural remedy. Putting them together in propolis, I think just really catapults it further. So 2 areas that are really key are the flavonoids and phenolics. Again, I don't want to get too much into the chemistry of it, and I don't want to run too long in the presentation, but these are 2 key compounds to make sure you get into propolis. And when we talk about how to get a good quality propolis, it'll come back into our conversation there as we get into that. So most people, again, know it for its immune benefits, immune modulation. It increases the responsiveness. I mentioned a number of the benefits it has for the macrophage, the Pac-Man, the immune cells. It increases natural killer cell activity. These are the immune system's rapid responders. So when your body has to deal with something, they're quick to act. It improves the overall responsiveness of the immune system. So you can see just this little list of 7 things makes it a powerful remedy as far as immune system goes. But then there's even more to it. Antibody production, stimulates cytokines. Cytokines are basically chemical messenger of the immune system. They tell your immune system, hey, we need this type of cell. We need cells here. We need to turn on. We need to turn off. Those types of things. And increase the activity of phagocytes. Phagocytes, again, gobble up. There's a process called phagocytosis where they eat these things. It's been shown to have a synergy with antibiotics, actually making them better. It improves the CD4-CD8 ratio, and that's a really good balance measure for how your immune system is operating, whether it's under-operating, under-functioning, or whether it's in an inflammatory state and things of that sort. Interestingly, one of the studies, I think it was an Australian study, showed that propolis, when used with antibiotics, actually improved the antibiotic effectiveness anywhere from 10 to 100-fold. So powerful ally there to use in conjunction with propolis. So it also has a synergy with vaccines. It induces an earlier, quicker response from the vaccine, provides longer protection period from the vaccine. It improves the overall effectiveness of the vaccine. And decreases the side effects of the vaccine. And I also mentioned synergy with the antibiotics as well. So this is a natural remedy that in many ways plays well with certainly leading conventional medicines. One of the things it interacts with is something called toll-like receptor 4, TLR4. This is a measure for inflammation in the body. It reduces expression of TLR4, it decreases the inflammation in the body. It activates something called nuclear factor kappa B and inflammatory cytokines. And again, I don't get too far into the chemistry of things of this, but I want to show you or give you an idea about how detailed some of the science is on these remedies. So it's not just a matter of, hey, we took this remedy and it seemed to have this benefit. They've actually gone in and looked at physiologically, what are the mechanisms, what are the pathways, what are the things that are going on that are being affected in this regard. NF-kappa B and TLR4 are two of the really key ones, particularly as it relates to the immune system and inflammation. Speaking of inflammation, because it has so many different compounds, it can interact and help create a healthy inflammatory response through a number of mechanisms. COX-1, COX-2, interleukin-6 is one of those cytokines that I was talking about. Prostaglandins, one of the reasons, we take fish oils and omega-3s is because we want to keep those prostaglandins down. Leukotrienes, another generator of stimulating inflammation in the body. Histamine, anybody with allergies is more than aware of the inflammatory effects of histamine in the body. So again, you can see a range of things happening. Again, not just one pathway, not just one mechanism, but a number of things being interacted with, in this case, just as far as a healthy inflammatory response. So I mentioned nuclear factor kappa B. These are some of the conditions that are associated with issues with NF-kappa B. It activates pro-inflammatory genes. Higher NF activation can worsen a number of inflammatory conditions. We did a presentation before on eczema. NF-kappa B is very relevant to eczema. So you can see how, again, working on this one pathway, you extrapolate out, and there may be a broad range of applications for Propolis. So one of the interesting things about it has what I call a three-pronged antimicrobial action, in that it has a direct action. It's very antimicrobial, antipathogenic. It kills a number of different things, and we'll show you some of that in a minute. It has an indirect action, meaning, and then by that I mean it boosts the body's immune system, the body's immune responses, and then it has a holistic prong benefit to it, and that's systemic. It's protective. So while all this stuff is going on, you need to make sure the body as a whole, the systems that are being confronted, respiratory, cardiovascular, whatever it may be, are being taken care of, nourished, supported, and protected. Antibacterial, it's been shown to inhibit bacterial growth by preventing cell division. So basically the bacteria doesn't reproduce. It disorganizes the cytoplasm, the innards of the bacteria. It can weaken the cell wall. It's been tested against strep, staph, pneumonia, MRSA, drug-resistant E. coli. And that's one of the amazing things here, is that a lot of these antimicrobial actions have been tested against drug-resistant versions of those pathogens, and oftentimes Propolis is extraordinarily effective. As far as viruses go, it's been shown to block viral DNA synthesis, inhibit virus activity, a number of different viruses in that regard. And again, it works holistically. So it's targeted immune support, as well as working systemically through the whole body. I mentioned some of the different pathogens that has been shown to impact. Again, you can see a list. This is a fairly extensive list, but you could probably add another dozen or more parasites and things to this list as the research has expanded since this list was put together. Antiviral actions, again, wide range of interactions as far as interacting with viruses, reduce overall viral numbers. It inhibits the infectious activity. It breaks down the viral protein coat. And this is really important because oftentimes our immune systems have difficulty finding these viruses in the body. And a lot of that is because of that protein coat. So, but the fact that it can break it down means the immune system can be more effective at actually finding these viruses and targeting them. Enhanced viral clearance, meaning getting rid of it. I mean, even dead viruses running through your body are not a good thing. From entering host cells, viruses can't live particularly very long, depending on the virus on their own. What they have to do is get into the body and get into your cells in order to reproduce and do what they do. So again, a wide range of applications, and you can see how these things added up together make for a powerful remedy in that regard.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about the scary germ, but I think that, yeah, that summed it up.
So numerous studies have found Propolis effective against funguses. There's a growing concern in that area. There are some fungal infections that seem to be spreading worldwide right now. It's been studied across a number of them, including, again, some of these drug-resistant ones, and those are the ones that are really difficult. There was a study done where they looked at 128 different fungal infections, including 80 strains of Candida and 38 strains of other fungi infections. 7 of them were drug-resistant strains, and it inhibited growth of every single one of them. And there is no pharmaceutical medicine out there that can compare in this regard to what it can do. Athlete's foot, ringworm, jock itch, some of the more common infections showed to be beneficial in that regard. Green propolis, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, stimulates phagocytes, making them more effective, so they're better at killing, in this case, the fungal infections. Next up is microbiome. I'm sure everybody's heard more and more about the microbiome. We're finding out that this is key and fundamental to health. It's key and fundamental to treating any chronic disease and a lot of acute diseases, longevity as well. It's interesting, again, working holistically in that it can kill off bad bacteria, support the good bacteria, protect against the toxins that some of these bad bacteria can produce, repairs the intestinal lining, the cells lining the intestines, which may be useful for leaky gut and things of that sort. So again, a wide range of applications here. A study found that it increased gut diversity. So you get a wider range of good bacteria, and we know that's one of the key factors for a healthy microbiome. It increases short chain fatty acid producing bacteria. These are the good bacteria in the colon, and there are studies showing that these short chain fatty acids are really key in that gut brain connection, and certainly are relevant for a number of conditions that are of concern. Wound healing is certainly topically. Honey and propolis are a wonderful pair, showing a synergy between the two. Regenerates the tissue, it kills things that may be there, it increases cell metabolism, so the wound can heal better, collagen formation. So some real potential there topically and internally as far as helping with wounds and healing. Skin research, again, we did a whole presentation on it's useful for skin, so just touch on this. Since you have it recorded, you have the whole, I think, presentation available for people to go through. But there are a number of compounds in propolis that are useful for a wide range of acute and chronic skin conditions. Red propolis seems to be particularly effective in this regard for, again, certain conditions. All 3 types have been shown to have anti-ulcer, skin ulcers as well as internal ulcers, so useful there. UV radiation protection. It would make sense to put, propolis extract in suntan lotions and things if you can. So a wide range of applications topically here. Other things, synergy with antibiotics I mentioned.
Just to jump in there, Dr. Mark. Yeah, on the skin. Yeah, you did a whole presentation on our skin disease event, which was amazing. But I mean, just to sum it up there, I mean, for eczema in particular, there's a topical infection component and there's an anti-inflammatory component, and you want to address both of those concerns. Well, with eczema and with most like topical skin conditions, there's usually a topical infection, and there's always an inflammation component. And yeah, topical propolis application is amazing for addressing both of those. It was the light bulb moment with when we were going through everything with cancer for Ryder, and then when we were going through high grade eczema with Rocky, it's like I was thinking about anti-pathogenic and propolis. Yeah, it was another light bulb moment like 6 years later. So yeah, no, I just wanted to highlight that one. Yeah.
Okay. Another comment. One of the things that can reduce are what are called age, advanced glycosylated end products. That's basically where sugars are binding to proteins in the body. It is one of the best acronyms that I think that exist out there, AGE, because age is a leading ager of the body, particularly of the skin, but also of the organs and certainly of the eyes. So propolis may be beneficial in that regard. Chelating heavy metals, it's something that doesn't get talked about, I think, enough. It's hard to avoid heavy metals in our environment nowadays. Water supplies, foods, chocolate, it's becoming more and more pervasive. So being able to chelate them, meaning bind with them and get them out of the body, is key in this regard. So brown propolis, again, gathered from poplar, willow, birch, elm, alder, beech, horse chestnut, comes from a number of different trees. So you can see why propolis is the most widespread of the types of propolis out there. Supports the immune system, the respiratory system, mucosal membranes, respiratory health, supports bone health. It's been shown to improve bone mineral density, protects against that heavy metal toxicity that I was talking about. And most of the studies, when we look back, some of the things that we were just talking about, most of that research has been done with brown propolis, although we're finding more and more that green propolis and red propolis also do many of those things, basically because brown propolis is more popular, it's more readily available, it's been used for a much longer period of time. So there's a much larger amount of research done on brown propolis. That doesn't mean green and red may not also have those benefits. It just means the research hasn't caught up to in that regard. I mentioned brown propolis. It's one of the best things for oral health. In fact, Natura Nectar makes a product called Throat Guardian, which is a spray, which I'll mention at the end if we have time. I use it as a mouthwash because it gets rid of the bad bacteria, supports the good bacteria, has a number of benefits in that regard. So we're in allergy season. It's been shown to inhibit histamine release. There's growing problems with food poisoning, certainly in this country and elsewhere. Brown propolis can be helpful in that regard. I mentioned CAPE earlier. CAPE is really one of the key constituents found in brown propolis. CAPE is extraordinarily well researched, and you can see a wide range of benefits and applications to it in that regard. Neuroprotective. It blocks excitotoxicity. That's basically your brain getting too worked up. One of the problems with MSG is that it induces this excitotoxicity. And like anything, you rev up anything too much for too long, and it's going to end up backfiring on you. So obviously we don't want our brain doing that in that regard. So wide range of benefits for CAPE. Again, we could do a whole hour, or I could do a whole hour just on CAPE benefits, but it is extraordinarily well researched with a wide range of benefits. It raises glutathione and SOD levels in the brain. These are two endogenous antioxidants that the body produces. Antioxidant free radical fighting is essential in the brain, key to a number of certainly chronic conditions in that regard. Brazilian green propolis, you can see it on the bee. It actually is green. It comes from the Baccharis dracunculifolia. Bees actually collect this from the buds and young leaves of this plant. Bees scan the leaves upon landing on it with their antenna, and it's rich in the cinnamic acids I mentioned earlier, and two key compounds, baccarin and artapilin C. So again, a range of constituents, some new ones that are new that that are not just in the brown. So we start seeing where we build on this. Brown has all these things, green has some of them plus others, red is the same thing, has some of those plus others. So it's really expanding our encyclopedia of constituents here. Wide range of benefits, also immunomodulating. It can inhibit those inflammatory cytokines. It's been shown to downregulate pro-inflammatory pathways, the things that turn inflammation on, and it upregulates the anti-inflammatory pathways, the things that turn that process off. It increases phosphorylation, which is basically phosphorus binding in this process that turns off the inflammatory process. I like it a lot because it reduces neuroinflammation, again, something that gets underestimated, but we're finding out is more and more important for certain relevant conditions. It affects PAC1, which is relevant to certainly an immune condition that we can't talk about. It increases brain-derived neurotrophic growth factor. It's miracle grow for the brain. It's been shown to protect the spleen when under a lot of stress. So again, wide range of benefits that green brings to the table here.
I hope everyone saw the email. Because I'll post this in the chat as well. If anyone has not read the C word specific article I did on propolis or propolis, you should really read it, because I talked a lot about PAC1 in that article. I'll post that right now.
So again, a wide range of benefits, not just all immune related. There are 2 rat studies that have been done showing an increased sperm count and blocks oxidative stress of the sperm. So it may be beneficial. for men that are trying to have a child. It's been shown to increase testosterone, again, at least in a rat study. Also chelates those heavy metals that we're talking about. Synergy with ascorbic acid has actually been shown to increase absorption of ascorbic acid, and it may inhibit fat absorption. So if you take it with a meal that's fatty, it may block some of that absorption of those things. It increases leptin. Leptin is a hormone that inhibits hunger. So again, wide range of applications, not just antimicrobial, not just immune boosting, but you can see a wide range here. Artapilin C, I talked about it, a very important constituent that's found in there. Again, I don't want to just read the things there for you. The interesting things that I want to mention here are it enhanced insulin stimulating glucose uptake, meaning more sugar was taken out of your bloodstream and taken into the cell where it can be burned for fuel. And that's really important because circulating sugar, high blood sugar, we know that's not a good thing. It creates inflammation, creates free radical damage, contributes to a wide range of diseases, if not all different conditions. Certainly a major ager, certainly related to the condition we can't talk about, as well as diabetes, a number of brain conditions. So really important to have healthy insulin levels. It improves insulin sensitivity, and this is the cell's response to insulin. You want your cells to basically to be super sensitive to insulin, so your pancreas doesn't have to secrete a lot. Cells get taken, or the sugar gets taken up into the cells quickly and readily, get burned for fuel, where they don't create a lot of problems. Cells develop insulin resistance over time when we inundate them with too many carbohydrates, refined sugars, refined carbohydrates. Flour products, I think, are a major contributor to this. So it may help in that regard. May even help as far as healthy blood sugar levels, neuroprotective, I mentioned. So again, just one constituent in there having a range of benefits. This is a study that was done showing its effect on prostaglandins, which I mentioned is a pro-inflammatory process. It reduced, again, that nuclear factor kappa B that we were talking about before. May modulate edema, swelling, and cell migration in injured areas. So like you sprain your ankle, it may help slow that swelling and encourage a healthier healing environment, so to speak. So
yeah,
red
cape and artapilin C, it's like it's same kind of thing with when it comes to curcumin versus turmeric. There's a ton of different curcuminoids in turmeric, but of course all the attention gets put on curcumin. Same thing. Like you can just you can dive into just caffeic acid, or you can dive into artapilin C, and it's just ridiculous. Just go to PubMed and start scanning through the studies on both those things, and then realize that like Dr. Mark said, it's like apigenin, which you think of for celery, is also in there, and a million other things. It's just it's amazing. Yeah, it really is.
To give you an example of how potent this was, artapilin C is an anti-inflammatory. A 1 milligram dose decreased inflammation 29%. A 10 milligram dose decreased it by roughly 58%. So pretty powerful anti-inflammatory in that regard. So red propolis, this is what really brought JL to the game as far as Natura nectar. It was recently discovered roughly about 20 years ago. JL mentioned that his co-founder of the company, Alessandro Estevez, he was actually part of the team that discovered the source for propolis. Now, I don't know if this is a myth or not, but I like the story, so I'm going to tell it anyways. The idea is that when the red propolis was first seen, that people thought it was actually coming from bees that were feeding off of sugar at a candy factory that had, sugar dyed with red dye. Thankfully, Alessandro decided, no, that doesn't make any sense. So they actually went through these mangrove swamps where it originates and discovered the source for it. So you can see here on the top right, those are the mangrove swamps. On the top left is the actual hives. Then you can see it is actually a red propolis that they line the hive with and everything in this regard. So I mentioned it comes from the plant Dalbergia. Dalbergia is the first, red propolis is the first propolis that was discovered to come from a legume source. All the other ones came from shrubs and from trees. New compounds have been discovered in this, neovestitol and a couple other compounds. Again, we won't get into the chemistry. It's found in these mangrove swamps, so it's not easy to get to and find. Rich in these flavonones, flavanol compounds. There are 11 isoflavones. There are more flavonoids in this than any other type of propolis. These are the blocks. These compounds block the creation and accumulation of what are called biofilms. Biofilms simply are kind of a slimy protection that bacteria produce in order to protect themselves. It's a way to hide from the immune system. So they slime their environment, and when the immune system comes along, all they do is see the slimy goo and not the bacteria that's hiding behind it. So, being able to rid that biofilm is certainly key and can help the immune system operate more effectively. Of the different types of propolis, it seems to be the one that is most potent as an antifungal, wide range of cardiovascular benefits, gastroprotective as well. So new constituents brought into the table, new applications, and again, just enriching the number of active compounds that propolis has to offer. I mentioned it is a very potent antioxidant. The ORAC value is over twice what turmeric is. Problem with ORAC is that it's a good laboratory measurement. It's not a real relevant measurement for real world, for what's actually happening in the body. There's another measure called DPPH, and red propolis has been shown to be 84.3% effective in that regard. So extraordinarily potent, if not one of the most potent antioxidants that are out there. And when you look at the research on antioxidants, if you go to PubMed or other places, it's interesting, and the press kind of plays on this a lot. They're always talking about how, such and such study, antioxidants failed to work. Antioxidant didn't work. Well, more times than not, it's a synthetic antioxidant, and there's problems with that. And they also use isolated antioxidants. Antioxidants work best when they're combined together. Propolis has a bunch of different antioxidants in there, which is one of the reasons why I think they're such effective antioxidants. So I want to get into why, not all propolises are created equal, a point I made earlier. There are a number of important factors that can affect this: the source, the processing, the concentration, impurities and things. And this is really important. And we'll talk a little bit again about some of the other actions and benefits here. So it's not all just about, but it's really important when you're getting a propolis product to make sure you're going to get one that's going to do what you want, and that's not going to be loaded down with compounds that you don't want in the body. So Natura Nectar, again, they've been doing it for a number of years, producing the red, the green, the brown, all from Brazil, all from pristine environments. And that's extraordinarily important. Brazil is key here because Brazil has roughly 40,000 different plant types of propolis. So there's more different types of propolis in Brazil than anywhere else in the world. And half of those 40,000 are plants that only grow in Brazil. So Brazilian propolis is unique in that, it was mentioned before, they gather the propolis from a number of different plants oftentimes. So having the right plants makes a difference, and Brazil has a unique environment in that regard. Natura Nectar is the first and only propolis company to achieve NSF content certification. So again, third-party testing showing that this product is clean, that it is what it is really important. There's a lot of fraud and things that are going out there. I just read a report from a lab company, Alchemist Labs. They were talking about how all these companies are selling their products, particularly on Amazon, and they're faking these lab certifications supposedly from the lab. So it's really important, I think, to have those third-party certifications, not just in-house testing in this regard. And it's really commendable that Natura Nectar has gone to this length and gotten this NSF certification, which is not an easy thing to do, I would add. So there are a number of things that I think, what I call the Natura Nectar difference. Pristine source, I've mentioned that a number of times. Unique extraction, which I'll talk about briefly. Bioavailability, this is a waxy resin. It does not get digested by the body. If you took a mouthful of it, tried to chew it, it's going to stick to your teeth. It's going to get in between the gums, and you're just not going to get it out. Even if it gets into your digestive tract, your body's not going to break it down. Purity, you want to make sure you're getting propolis. You want that 5% of those active constituents you're looking for. You don't want the waxy resin. You don't want the heavy metals. You don't want whatever pesticides may be in there. You don't want allergens that may be in there. Quality, again, we're going to talk about how important that the source is in that. Range of constituents. This relates to how a product is extracted. Most companies, if they extract it, they either do a hot water extraction or they do an alcohol extraction. The problem with that is each of those brings certain constituents, but they leave out other constituents. So Natura Nectar, and I'll show you in a minute, has a unique extraction process. They call it a green extraction, which allows them to pull out all of those things without using any nasty solvents. Consistency, standardization. number of studies show that propolis can vary from region to region. It can vary seasonally, even in the same hive. It can vary geographically. Weather can change and impact it. So propolis is best when it's standardized, so you know that you're getting the active constituents. The type and variety, which we talked about, the three. Natura Nectar is vertically integrated from beginning to end. They own the hives, they own the extraction. Everything is controlled in that process for them. Research, which again I showed you some earlier, and I'll show you a little bit more in a minute. They're not just that there's research on propolis, but there is research on Natura Nectar's products in particular. So it all starts with the source. Again, the beehive will mirror the environment that it's in. So you want to make sure these are in clean, pristine environments. You don't want to be downwind from a Kodak factory or a distillery or something that may be putting things out that's not good for the environment. So the environment makes a big difference. The product can only be as good as the starting material that you use. Green extraction process, they have a unique extraction process. While they use only water in the extraction because of other things, proprietary processes involved, they're able to first get rid of all those nasty things you don't want in there. And they're able to extract both those water soluble and those alcohol soluble compounds. So you get a full range, a holistic range of the constituents that exist in there. So they don't use propylene glycol, which is a kind of, if you look at an alcohol-free propolis extract is what they use. I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of consuming propylene glycol. It's not loaded with impurities. It's not loaded with allergens. It's extracted, it's clean, and it gives you all those active constituents that you're looking for in this regard.
I will say that's my rage against the machine story when it comes to propylene glycol is when we were in the hospital with Ryder and we were saying no to obviously we couldn't say no to the chemo, and he did need a little chemo to shrink that big tumor, but we were saying no to everything else they were trying to push on us. And the one thing, all the different, the GCSF and all these different things that were like, I was looking them up. It was like, these are really bad ideas to add on to all this stuff. But the one thing we said yes to, because he was constipated from the chemo, was Miralax. And turns out that propylene glycol is the main ingredient in Miralax, and there's a whole Facebook group with I don't know, it's probably like 60, 70, 80,000 people right now. And it's, parents against Miralax or mothers against Miralax or something like that. And it turns out it's linked to all sorts of mental disorders. And sure enough, right. It was very apparent when we got him off the Miralax. So anyway, don't take Miralax, and don't consume propylene glycol. Yeah.
So as far as the purity that we're talking about, as far as making sure you're getting the active constituents, again, there's research confirming that the green extraction here obtains anywhere from 90 to 95% of the flavonoids that are in the raw propolis. So it's getting out the vast majority of those compounds that we're looking to pull out. And it's doing it without, again, either nasty solvents or partial extractions that the other types of natural extractions do. We mentioned the impurities. Again, this green extraction allows us to get rid of these waste products, the resins, the natural occurring compounds that are naturally occurring, which are fine, but you don't necessarily want them in your body. They're not going to serve any purpose as it relates in this regard. And again, first and only company to get that NSF certification. And I mentioned the research. There are a number of studies that have been done using these extractions from Natura Nectar. Again, we won't go into time because they deal with some conditions we can't mention, but again, to show that they actually research their actual products themselves.
Hey, Dr. Mark, can you speaking of Natura Nectar versus other companies, like I said in the beginning, I was just starting to geek out on propolis and realizing how amazing it was before I stumbled into Natura Nectar at a cancer conference. And I got I don't know how much. I still have a lot of it because we haven't used most of it, but it was like a case of this propolis tincture from I bought into the the marketing, and it was one of these like Manuka New Zealand companies, and the stuff just tasted horrific. Like it was the, you know, what like we're kind of accustomed to bad tasting things, to, you know, because sometimes things taste bad, but they're good for us. But it was a terrible tasting, just you really like really bad. And obviously, I mean, you know, like most of the Natura Nectar products come in capsules, and, you know, the sprays are tasty, but and whatnot. But even when you open up the capsule, it's like kind of a sweet, nice taste. Is that just like, you know, I know you can't speak to, and I'm not even saying the specific company. I don't even remember the name of the specific company, but is that all the impurities that are in it, or what is that made that product taste so horrific, versus when I open up a Natura Nectar capsule, no flavoring or anything, it's kind of a pleasant taste?
Can be impurities. It could also be because of the extraction technique they're using. They're not getting those really wonderful aromatics that are in propolis. Propolis was actually used traditionally in perfumes. So, you know, you talk about this smelling really badly. You don't necessarily want to use that stuff as a basis for your perfume. So a good propolis product, when it's extracted properly, does have this nice, oftentimes a little floral quality to it. And again, that may be due to the extraction, could be the type of propolis, and it could also be because there's a lot of gunk. I mean, you don't want to know what's in a lot of these propolis products, because it's a really crude extraction that doesn't delineate, you know, hey, I want this, I don't want this in the process.
Fair enough.
So talking about the research, this is a study done using the water extract of the propolis for Natura Nectar, looking at lung function. You can kind of get a sense more specifically what this was for, but I can't name the condition. But it decreased the number of nocturnal attacks, improved overall lung respiratory function in this regard. And then a number of other measures were studied as well. Prostaglandin, again, lowering those inflammatory measures, interleukin-6, another inflammatory measure. So again, confirmation that in this case, an anti-inflammatory action within the respiratory system in this regard. So just quickly going through the line, this is the line of the basic pure propolis lines. You know, we talked about brown, green, and red. The trio is mostly brown, some green, and a little bit of red. The ultimate, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is a third of each. Red propolis, again, has unique flavonoids in there that you're not going to find anything else, and you're only going to get them really with this green extraction. High antioxidant. You don't need a lot of it for it to be effective. It's free of impurities, free of, you know, gluten, beeswax, and allergens. So people who do have pollen allergens, not a concern. What are called structure function claims. You can see a number of systems that are supported here. I think really key, one of the things that's really intriguing about red propolis is it's particularly relevant for pancreatic cell health. And there's not a lot out there, and there are serious concerns in that regard. Hormonal support, but you can see a wide range of applications, structure function claims for it. Green propolis, heart and circulatory system, support cell regeneration, nerve protected in the eyes as well as in the brain. I forgot to mention the eyes. Potent remedy. Again, structure function claims for it. Overall brain health, supports the spleen. I mentioned particularly under stress. Great for the larynges, the throat, tonsillitis, that whole area. Particularly relevant for a study supporting it. Supports prostate cell health, breast cell health. Again, range of benefits. So briefly on synergy, this is a word that unfortunately gets thrown around way too much, particularly in the natural products industry. It's used as a marketing term. Generally, they say, okay, let's say I'm making a mushroom product. I'm going to put 10 mushrooms in there because that's going to make it better because I have 10 mushrooms in there. Does not make any sense. It does not synergy. That is not just blending a whole bunch of the same things. There may be a ton of redundancy. There may be contradictions in some of these uses and mechanisms that are involved. So you're really looking for synergy. And the nice thing is you can find synergy, and you can find research supporting synergy for the different types of propolis. There are studies showing that combining 2 different types of propolis have greater benefits for some of these applications that we were talking about. And that's what makes the ultimate product, I think, the ultimate product, in that it has a third red, third brown, a third green. So it has literally, I would imagine, 500 or more active constituents in this regard. There are other synergies to be had with propolis. EGCG, which is found in green tea, has been shown to be beneficial for healthy blood sugar levels. Turmeric, I'm a big fan of turmeric. Some nerve support there. Ginseng, brain support. Fish oil, brain support. And it can help prevent the fish oil from going rancid, which is key. Topically, it works well with aloe. So there's some synergies between the types of propolis as well as other natural remedies. Again, the ultimate propolis is really the ultimate propolis. A third of all, rich in caffeic acid, phenyl ether ester, artapilin C, number of compounds, hundreds of active constituents, working, I would argue, virtually every system in the body, every organ in the body, modulating the immune system so you get a healthy, balanced immune response in that regard. And then they have the functional line. These are really more targeted, specific applications. I mentioned the throat guardian, nasal guardian, certainly really relevant today with all the respiratory concerns. So just to show you that they exist there, we don't have time to go into all of them. I just want to mention East Femin. I joke about this. I say East Femin saved my marriage. My wife was going through menopause, and I can remember we were living in New Jersey at the time. We were sitting down watching TV, and I remember looking over at her, and she just looked like a fountain. She was just sweating. It was just pouring off of her. I'm going to get yelled at after this because she's listening. She was bright red. She had some really nasty menopausal symptoms in that regard. She got on the East Femin product. She started taking 1 a day for the first few days, and it decreased the symptoms. But when she went on 2 a day, basically the symptoms went away, and she stayed on it for several years and really had no problem with it whatsoever. So my protocol in the past for menopause was like 6 to 8 different herbal remedies and things, and certain restrictions. So finding East Femin where you're taking just a couple of capsules a day, a real godsend in that regard. It contains a fermented soy. The fermented makes it absorption. It's better absorbed, better utilized by the body. It has some calming herbs, valerian, chamomile, passion flower. Truly a miraculous remedy. I guarantee its effectiveness in that regard. Throat guardian, again, I mentioned it. I keep one in the bathroom. I use it instead of a mouthwash. A lot of the mouthwashes out there aren't good for oral health. They may make your breath smell better, but what they're doing is they're killing off all the good bacteria. Yep. It's like a lot of these things that we take internally. They kill the good microbiome, and it leaves you with certain microbiota disturbances. That happens orally in that regard. Listerine is a good example. I shouldn't mention the name. Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, we just did a social post about this, and even like, a lot of the, even when you're in the, the Whole Foods or natural grocery store or whatever, and you're going down the oral care, toothpaste, mouthwash, blah, blah, blah aisle, it's all about like all of those, the toothpaste and mouthwash and blah, blah, blah. Even on the holistic side, they're all just like loaded with the whole thing is just an antibacterial. That's all it is. And it's like, well, that's, we've been trained to just be terrified of bacteria in the mouth, but yes, you should be like targeting bad bacteria, but you shouldn't just be like nuking everything. Yeah.
And this is true with antibiotics. Antibiotics aren't discriminating, so they kill off bacteria. Unfortunately, there are a number of natural remedies that are widely used that kill off the bad stuff, but they also kill off the good stuff. Essential oils, which I'm a big fan of, but not a big fan of taking them internally because they're not discriminatory in this regard. So something like propolis is amazing in that, again, gets rid of the bad, supports the good, and it's been shown to increase numbers of the good. So again, I use it in the bathroom, and just, use it instead of a mouthwash. I also use it when I get out of the gym in the mornings. Who knows who I've been around, a couple squirts there just to make sure the respiratory system stays clean and clear.
So Dr. Mark, are you saying that you like take a couple squirts and then like instead of a mouthwash, do you Like, do you take a little swish of water with that and then swish it around, or are you just,
No, I
just
just
saying you
I
you
swish it
spray
around
and-
straight. I squirt it in the mouth, a couple squirts, 2 or 3 squirts, and I just swish it around, hold it in there for a little while, and then I swallow it. Obviously, you don't want to spit it out like you would with a mouthwash because it's going to have some benefits internally as well.
Yeah. All right.
So again, research supporting healthy respiratory system, mucosal membranes. Again, a really wonderful remedy for a number of applications, particularly relevant today. And it tastes really good. I will add to that. If you want to, it's easy to give kids. There's not a big battle over trying to get them to take it because it does taste really good. JL did a great job with their liquids and making them all really palatable. So just quickly on the 2 slides on kind of things to be aware of. And I won't go into a lot of detail. I'll just mention the one thing here. You see propolis extract, 5-to-1 extract. This can be really misleading because you don't know where the material is from. You don't know what's in that material. You don't know what the extraction technique was that was used. So it's really kind of an irrelevant measure. You know, if I take junk and throw it in there and give you a 50-to-1 extract, you're going to say, wow, that's better than the 5-to-1. Not necessarily. If I could good quality material for a 5-to-1, it may be better than the 50-to-1. So you got to be careful with this, particularly as it relates to propolis, because again, propolis can reflect that environment with the toxins and environmental issues in that regard. The Natura Nectar standardizes products, so you know you're getting guaranteed levels of those key active constituents. And again, this is a measure of it. So it's free of the solvents. Again, I just wanted to mention that real quickly. Didn't want to go too much into it. So Natura Nectar is kindly offering 30% off all their products. And you can see the products that are here. And then lastly, I just quickly on what I call the lessons from the hive. I'm a big believer that the nature and the world around us is filled with lessons and insights. And there are 2 lessons that I kind of want to end on. One is a positive one, and that is one about purpose and connection are keys to longevity and vitality. And they actually did a study with the beehive where they removed all the younger bees that were taking care of the really young bees. And what they found is that the older bees that are basically kind of in a state of retirement, that were, you know, slowing down, they weren't going out and gathering pollen or honey or propolis or anything. What ended up happening is they basically got rejuvenated. They saw they needed to take care of the kids, the baby bees, what, I don't know if there's a term for that. And it actually rejuvenated them. They became younger, they became more active. They flew further. They started bringing back the honey and everything that the hive needed. And again, I think this is a message that purpose and connection are really key to our health and vitality. And there's a number of studies that confirm this. And then lastly, kind of the negative study in this regard, and that is the colony collapse disorder. I think bees and the health of the beehive are the canaries in the cave scenario. It's reflected of what's going on in the world at large. I don't know if you know, hives are disappearing consistently at a fairly significant rate for, boy, at least, I don't know, probably about 10 years. Initially, they thought it was just an infection, a viral infection, but we now know it's parasites and funguses. Also the pesticides, the neonicotinoids that unfortunately too many people use on their yards. It's a junk food diet. A lot of these bees are fed high fructose corn syrup. It does the same thing to the bees that it does to you and me. You know, it's not good for either of us. So get that junk out of here. Stress. These bees are picked up and traveled sometimes hundreds of miles. Very stressful. And again, tell me if these things don't sound kind of relevant to what's going on in our own lives. The environment, global warming, a number of things are happening around the world that are contributing to this colony collapse disorder. And again, I think the message is from them, hey, we need to pay attention to this. And remember, maybe you don't want bees, maybe you don't want propolis or honey or those things, but remember, bees pollinate a number of really important foods. Oh, yeah. Some of my favorites. I'm a huge watermelon fan. I love tea. I love peaches. I mean, if these foods were to disappear, I would have some problems with it. And I'll go back here. I don't know if you can see right above the ER on disorder. See that little bee thing? One of the responses in the way they're trying to fix this is they're trying to create robot bees to replace the real live bee thing. So
are they really?
Yeah, and apparently it's not working as well as they had hoped. But again, that's not the answer. The answer is to solve these issues. Let's get at the cause the same
Yeah,
lessons we need to
about-
learn about our health and healing, get at the cause, and we solve the issues from there. So,
stop pesticides and EMF. That'd be a big start.
so thank everybody for your attendance, for listening in.